Good evening, and welcome to Calm Sleepy Tales, where tonight I have a Widdersham tale for the turning back of the clocks. Every year, when the clocks go back in autumn, Widdersham holds a quiet evening celebration called the Lost Hour. Lanterns are floated down the river, each one carrying a wish, a goodbye, or a secret meant only for the water to keep. First, let's begin by letting go of the day and enjoy this moment of stillness. Find a comfortable position. Let your head rest and close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath in and gently exhale. With each breath, imagine the air around you becoming softer, warmer, more peaceful. As you breathe, feel the tension in your jaw, your forehead, and your back begin to melt away. Let your hands rest. Let your feet soften. Feel your body begin to relax. Your shoulders, your arms, your legs, slowly becoming heavier, as if they're sinking gently into the bed beneath you. Imagine the worries of the day slowly dissolving, like mist in the morning sunlight, drifting away, leaving only peace behind. You are safe. You are warm. You are exactly where you need to be. Let yourself surrender to this comfort. And when you're ready, we'll begin tonight's story. The Lost Hour Festival. An hour may vanish from the clock, but it never leaves the heart. This is an old Widdersham saying, etched into the stone arch by the River Wending. No one knows exactly when the Lost Hour Festival began. Some say it started the year the great frost came early and stayed too long, when time itself seemed to slip on the ice and tumble into the river. Others claim it began when a child left a candle on a boat on the water as a goodbye to her pet mouse, and it floated all the way to the sea. But ask Miss Thorne of the Second Chapter Bookshop, and she'll tell you the real tale, or as close to real as the stories get in Widdersham. It was early evening in late frost autumn. The amber glow of shop windows reflected on rain-damp cobbles, and the chimneys wore sleepy curls of smoke. Inside the bookshop, a group of children huddled around the reading hearth as Miss Thorne dusted the cover of a thick green book that hadn't been opened in years. "A long time ago," she began, "the people of Widdersham noticed something curious. When the clocks went back in autumn, things felt different, as though something dear had slipped through their fingers. Some said it was just the dark coming earlier, but others believed that when the clocks changed, time itself dropped an hour into the river, like a pearl off a string. Did someone try to find it?" asked a boy named Casper, clutching a velvet bookmark shaped like a lantern. "Oh yes," Miss Thorne smiled. "But instead of finding the hour, they decided to honour it. The first lost hour was simple. A few villagers lit lanterns, each one holding a scribbled note. Some were wishes. "I wish for spring to come early," or "I wish my brother would come home." Others were goodbyes. "Thank you, Grandpa," or "I'll miss you, Pip." And some were secrets, things too heavy to carry or too light to say aloud. They floated them down the River Wending and watched as the current cradled each little light, carrying their words into the night. Over time, it became a tradition. On the last Saturday of frost autumn, just as the clock slipped backward, the town would gather by the river. Shops would close early, candles would be lit, and lanterns, hand-folded from wax paper and twine, would be placed gently in the water. This year, the air had that particular crispness that smells of cinnamon and chimney smoke. Leaves gathered like rustling confetti on the steps of Thistle and Crumb, where Mabel was busy handing out mini-spiced buns in exchange for hand-drawn lantern notes from children. Next door, at the Misty Teacup, Miss Theodora Plum served warm apple-time tea in little cups that had been dusted with edible glitter. She had brewed a special blend called Midnight Memory, said to help you remember the good parts of something you've let go. At Curds and Quill, the cheesemonger poet Quentin Quill had composed a short verse that was printed on every paper lantern. If time must slip, then let it glide upon the current, soft and wide. A wish, a sigh, a truth to keep. Float down the river, fall asleep. At Bramble and Bolt's, Tobin Bramble had fashioned tiny, brass-laced clips to hold lanterns steady on the water, so no wish would tip before its time, he said, handing them out with a wink. Even Snugnest toys joined in. Nellie Cobblewick and Nurse Polly Pocket Mouse had made miniature lanterns for the toys, which they solemnly placed on a toy boat called the HMS Whimsy and set adrift in the puddle by the back gate. The wooden rocking horse in the window gave a single blink, as if approving. At twilight, the villagers made their way to the stone arch by the River Wending. The arch was carved with ivy and stars, and beneath it the river whispered. They came with their lanterns, some simple, some ornate. Children balanced them in both hands. Elders carried them gently, like old photographs. The tradition was quiet. There was no music, no speeches, just the sound of water and candlelight. But the wishes, oh, the wishes. One lantern, folded in purple vellum, held the message, I'm ready now, you can go. Another, shaped like a boat, read, let this hour bring courage for tomorrow. A very small lantern, set off by a very small child, simply said, I miss you every Tuesday. There was one that carried a mystery. You were right about the umbrella. I kept it. It still works. Some were more practical. Please let the leak stop in my roof. If the next cat could not eat the curtains, that would be splendid. Some weren't notes at all. A folded ribbon, a pressed flower, a single button. And some weren't meant for reading, for the ink had been washed away by tears. Mr. Alaric Milo from Milo Co Antiques arrived with a lantern shaped like an hourglass. When asked what he'd written inside, he only said, a message to a moment I misplaced. Miss Thorne's lantern was shaped like a book and glowed faintly with lavender light. She whispered a name to it, one the wind carried away. Tobin Bramble brought an oddly mechanical lantern that clicked once before floating. It's set to release its message next year, he muttered. Time's not always punctual. Nellie from Snugnest placed a lantern in the river that contained a drawing, a crayon sketch of a teddy bear waving goodbye to a girl. For Rosie, she whispered, who doesn't visit the toy shop anymore, but who I hope still dreams. Even the Venn brothers, ever punctual, arrived just after the hour turned. One of them, it was said, sent a message to a version of himself who never became a clockmaker. The other sent a thank you to the very first gear he ever turned. At the end of the night, when the river had carried most of the lanterns gently out of sight, something curious happened. A single lantern, pale gold, with little clock faces painted along its base, floated back upstream. It bumped softly against the archer's stone pillar, and the townsfolk, quiet and reverent, gathered around as Mr. Milo retrieved it with a brass hook. No one admitted to making it. No one had seen it arrive. Inside, there was a tiny scroll of paper. Unfurling it revealed just 5 words. Not lost, simply waiting. Love. No one knew what it meant, and everyone did. Miss Thorne smiled. Sometimes the river returns what we're not quite ready to let go. As the last candles flickered into the distance and the river shimmered with their trails, the town lingered a while longer. The clocks had turned back. An hour had gone missing, but no one in Widdersham felt as though they'd lost anything. Instead, they'd gained something. The quiet relief of releasing a burden, the warmth of remembering someone dear, or the hush of a secret set free. And if you listen carefully, just beneath the river's ripple, you could almost hear the soft murmur of wishes being kept, safe and drifting gently toward wherever hours go when no one is counting them. But every autumn, it begins again. And as a little added extra, we have the riverbank murmurs, a scene of shared stories. As twilight melted into a velvet dusk, the people of Widdersham gathered along the moss-lined banks of the Wending River, each cradling their lantern. The golden glow of candlelight shimmered across gentle ripples, casting soft halos over woolen coats, gloved hands, and the bright eyes of children. A hush fell, not of silence, but of expectancy. Tobin Bramble, his apron still dusted with soot from the day's tinkering, cleared his throat. They say the lost hour is when time turns its back and pretends not to listen, he said, holding up his lantern with the smallest of grins. So I'll say this now, while it's not paying attention. I miss my brother Edgar. He used to whistle through his teeth when he worked. Drove me absolutely batty. I'd give anything to hear it again. There were soft murmurs of understanding. Miss Petronella Cobblewick, from Snugnest Toys, placed her lantern gently on the stone embankment before speaking. I once made a toy rabbit with one ear longer than the other. I gave it to a little boy who didn't speak. Weeks later, his grandmother told me he had named it Mop and whispered to it every night. I never saw the boy again. I hope he's still whispering. Next came Mabel Thistle, of Thistle and Crumb. Her apron still sprinkled with flour. She held a lantern with the tiniest pastry box inside. "This one's for my mum," she said, voice steady. She never missed a lost hour. She believed the river had memory. I like to think it still remembers her blackberry tarts. A young voice piped up then. Milo's apprentice. A lanky lad named Eli, who'd only lived in Widdersham for a year. "Mine's a secret," he said, blinking beneath his cap. "But I'll tell you this. It has to do with someone here. And I hope the river's the only one who figures it out." Laughter, soft and kind. Mr. Milo simply placed his lantern on the water and gave it a long, considering look. Then he muttered, "What I lost that hour was the answer to a question I forgot to ask before returning to his usual inscrutable silence." Lanterns in hand, the circle widened. Everyone began sharing. Some stories long, others just a sentence. A widow whispering goodbye to a wartime letter she could finally let go of. A baker confessing she once tried to run away to Paris, but missed the last train because she stopped to feed a stray cat. A small girl who admitted she had buried a talking marble in her garden because it said unkind things about her drawings. A quiet lad from Tog and Hem who shared that every year he wrote the same wish: "Let me belong." With each story, a lantern was gently placed on the water. They floated in graceful procession, drifting toward the willow shadows like glowing thoughts released. No one rushed. No one interrupted. It was the lost hour after all. And here in Widdersham, an hour lost was never really wasted. It was simply tucked away where memory could reach it when needed.